Greetings and salutations, listener. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the boy.
Hey.
This is the Two Nerds podcast, and today we're talking about halflings.
Yeah, halflings, hobbits. The various kinds of people who are regular people, except small, though.
This is an interesting podcast in our running line of so far Dungeons and Dragons races. Unlike a lot of people, we haven't had a wealth of interaction with halflings.
No, well, I mean, we've had this interaction with halflings that pretty much every single person who's into at all nerd stuff has, in that we've read/watched The Lord of the Rings.
Sure.
We've both also had some, I won't say traumatic experiences, but I will say negative ones with Kender.
You know, I don't know that I have.
You think it's a meme? You think On Your End the hate is a meme?
I've played a game with one Kender, and he was fine, all things considered.
So it's an inherited hatred.
Yeah,
you learned this. You learned this from watching your Papa Nerd.
Now, as a trope in fiction, I'm not certain I like the idea of them, and I know exactly the kind of person who would exploit that, and I don't want to play with them. But they wouldn't be at my table in the first place.
Yeah, that's fair. But other than that, neither of us have played a wealth of halflings.
No, I think it's low single digits.
Same. Really.
And not for long.
I use a lot of halflings in my work and as a DM, but
I just got this vision of you with like a fucking artist's beret and slices of halfling that you're layering on a canvas. I use a lot of halflings in my work.
And now I have a villain for another episode of DnD. But I use a lot of halflings as a DM, but I don't generally use them as a culture. I use them as a person. I don't know that I have used like an overarching halfling culture.
Well, and that's the funny thing too, because I feel like out of all of the races in Dungeons and Dragons vanilla, halflings are the ones that have changed the most over the editions. And we've talked about this before. But they started out being hobbits, and then the longer time went on, they became more and more like, I don't know, reckless thieves. At one point, I believe they were river nomads.
Yeah, at one point they were Cajun.
I think that's when they were. I believe that was 4th edition.
I think that was when they were the river nomads. They were Cajun river nomads.
And now they're back to being hobbits. Yeah.
But awful, though.
Visually, yes. Speaking of visuals, I'm sure you're looking at the thumbnail going, what the fuck is in front of my eyes? On the left, unless you're holding the phone upside down, in which case, monster. On the left is the halfling art from Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. All of the halfling art, for some reason, in the core book looks like this. That's the best piece of it. On the right half is a hobbit, I think they're called, from Warhammer Fantasy, from an older edition book. It is my favorite picture of a halfling who is enjoying a cucumber, as one does.
He's enjoying it normally, in a normal fashion.
Completely normal. If you find anything objectionable about the way that halfling is enjoying that cucumber, that's on you, friend.
That seems like a personal problem.
Yeah, I think maybe you should enjoy a good cucumber.
I think it might make them happier, feel more relieved with themselves.
I think so too.
But
no, the cucumber goes in the mouth. Podcast is canceled. Everyone pack your bags and go home. Oh, it looks like he's giving a beach to that cucumber. Jesus, I've killed my co-host. The podcast really is canceled. Today's episode, how to hide a fucking body. Oh, bless you, Warhammer Fantasy. That art always gives me giggles.
Sorry about that.
So what do you like about halflings?
They're small.
Yeah.
They're small people.
Okay, compared to gnomes, why is that good? Because gnomes are another very core book race.
Small but not quirky.
Okay.
Halflings are people.
I like you. You're small and lame.
Hey. Not quirky. There's a difference.
No, I agree.
There's no manic pixie dream halflings. We'll put it like that.
I don't know. Lita might have a word with you.
Yes, she can.
Why is the Halfling podcast the sex podcast? Halflings and Magikarp.
They're the right height. Both halflings and Magikarp.
Fuck it. Let's get hardcore.
Oh.
Oh, God. I'm so sorry, both for your ears and your souls, listener. Ultimo Dragon, go man aside.
Go, man.
There's a pun in there, and if you get it, you let us know in the comments.
But, I like them because the other small races have tropes. They have, like, a stereotypical character.
Yeah.
And if you deviate from that, you're playing against type. And if you don't deviate from that, you're playing to type. Halflings, at least in 5th edition, for me, they don't really have a type. They're just people. They're humans. They don't have enough of a strong stereotype that it looks weird, that any particular personality of theirs looks or feels strange.
Right.
So I can use them wherever I would use a human, but I want them to be small, though.
I get that, and I think maybe that's the reason I don't really use halflings, is it doesn't benefit me much to do so. There's nothing about their character or their race that really, unless I'm using hobbitses, and like I don't know, I've never really been inclined to use hobbits in the Tolkien sense.
I like hobbits.
I have nothing against them.
In a previous setting that I used to DM, my halflings were very specifically fucking hobbits. They stuck around their houses, and they were farmers, and they were gentlemen. They were English gentlemen, and they didn't like adventures or doing anything untoward. And I like that too. It's just they're different use case scenarios. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's one of the reasons I like 5th edition hobbits is because I can use them as hobbits. I could have a bunch of halflings who are just a farming community who don't like adventures, and everyone would get the reference, but that isn't the only thing they can be without it being kind of weird, like dwarves. Right.
I mean, dwarves have a couple of archetypes you can build around.
But they have a couple of archetypes, whereas for me, at least, 5th edition halflings don't.
Yeah, and by contrast, they don't pop to mind a lot, which I don't tend to use a lot of smaller races. I use kobolds more often than not.
We'll get to the kobolds.
I don't know if we will or not. But I have strong feelings about the dragon kobolds. I'm not a fan. I don't want to suck up the halfling podcast with a bunch of kobold talk, so we'll leave it at that. Hey,
if we run out of shit to say about halflings, that's what we'll do.
Yeah, sure, I'll rant for a while. We're only 9 minutes in. This bodes well for what I have to say about halflings. What don't you like about halflings?
Honestly, it's pretty much the same thing as the things I like about halflings.
Yeah.
For the same reasons they're useful as a DM, they're useless as a player.
They've got really good stat bonuses.
They've got really good mechanics.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to hook on to as a player. There's no reason this character should be a halfling as opposed to literally anything else.
I mean, really, it's did you want to play a human
but small?
But small, yeah.
And the answer to that's almost always no. Like, if I want to play a human, I'll play a human. If I want to play a human but small, I guess I'll play a halfling. Or I could play a dwarf and have, also cool fluff about being a dwarf to attach to.
Or a gnome and have the very specific fluff between either forest or tinker gnome.
And that's pretty much the long and short of it. One of the reasons I love halflings as a DM is kind of one of the reasons I dislike playing halflings. For that exact same, there's not really much there. I liked 4th edition halflings a lot more for that reason, because they had very strong, very unique fluff. They were Cajun river folk. They were the Roinyar from from A Song of Ice and Fire, but small though, and they sounded like fucking Remy and LeBeau.
I don't know how much of that part was baked into the fluff, but they did very much read as itinerant Cajuns. But yeah, you know, I'm having a hard time answering either question. What do I like about halflings?
Not much. What do you dislike about halflings?
Yeah,
by the transitive property, not much.
They're fine. They're there. I don't like. It always baffles me when someone's like, you know, this race is banned from my table, unless it's like non-book. I could even get non-core, you know. But
some of the out there races get a little. The balance gets a little shaky.
Well, and if you're like running a game where you like to have strong racial identities and cultures. You know, you don't want to be the GM necessarily that has to figure out how the fuck is everybody okay with a giant lizard monster roaming around their town. Sometimes that can be a fun story hook. Some people just don't want to fuck with it.
I love being that GM.
It's good because I'm one of your players.
Because instead of, the response is, how would people be okay with a giant lizard monster running around their town?
But I don't get, like, halflings and gnomes are the ones that none of those at my table. I don't understand that.
Look, I get gnomes. All right, real talk, I get gnomes.
Well, and the tinker gnomes specifically are the rock gnomes in 5e. I don't know why they don't call them tinker gnomes. That's what they are. They are the gnome equivalent of the kender.
Yeah.
They have earned their reputation.
And, like, I can understand no gnomes, no kender. Because you're not outlawing the race, you're outlawing the specifically incredibly disruptive culture. Like,
I did DM a gnome once who was, like, really into practical jokes and actively being played to being annoying as shit. And, like, I don't understand why you would do that as a person. But, hey, guess who I don't play with anymore?
That person. But it's... And that's one of the reasons I don't like kender is because they could be fine. I was in the same game he's talking about with a kender, and that guy was fine.
Yeah, he was just fine.
But, like, at the same time, it's one of those things where, sure, that might be fine, but if I come to your table and one of the players is playing a kender, you're on short notice. You're on thin ice, motherfucker.
Yeah, it sets up some red flags. It's going to put your players on edge. But like halflings broadly, I don't fully understand that. They're just small humans.
They're just smaller people. What's wrong with that? I don't get it.
Yeah. I have stronger feelings about humans than I do about halflings, to be honest with you.
Which is odd because they're just the same but smaller, though.
It makes them slightly less boring.
There's at least a thing different.
Yeah, they're at least tiny. And they do have fluff, even if it is either Mr. Frodo or, you know, Cajun Mr. Frodo.
I'm not doing a Cajun accent today.
Monsieur Frodo. That's just French.
Yeah.
Not even a good French. You don't have to tell me. But if you want to, comment section's right there.
Frodo me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's... they're just so... They're NPCs. They're a fantastic NPC race.
Yeah, that's
what you just said. Yeah, I don't use them personally because I default to something else. But sure.
Which is sad because there's a lot of potential in that race. There's a lot of potential for wonder if you're a Hobbit player, right? If you're playing a Hobbit, that's a really good way to be the fish out of water in D&D.
You know, I like that idea. I can see exactly where it's coming from and why it's different compared to a human. They're more pastoral in general. They're not in the big city, even if you're using the riverboat hobbits.
It's very easy to play Country Mouse Come to Town as a Hobbit.
Yeah.
And there's an extra layer of it because everything's so fucking big. They do it in the Lord of the Rings. They do it in the Lord of the Rings movies to great effect. It comes in pints. Like, you can do that. You can be that character, and everyone has a hook. Everyone at the table will instantly understand what you're doing. You can be Pippin. And, like, that's a really easy hook for a player to have, and it just never gets utilized. At least not by me or anyone at my table.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, I think, as well, now that you mentioned Pippin by name, I feel like a lot of the times when I talk to people who do play hobbits, or I see stories of people who are playing hobbits, you get one of three.
Sam, Mary, Pippin?
No. You get Pippin. You get, my mind is a blank.
Give me the character.
Well, you get a Kender.
Turbo Pippin.
I don't know if Turbo Pippin is enough. Quadratic Turbo Pippin. Or you get Bellecar Bitterleaf.
God. Again, that's an excellent character.
Sure.
Like, I understand you have specific issues with that specific character, but Bellecar is an incredibly well-made character and an incredibly fun character to play, I would assume, if you have a DM who actually turns into the skid about it and is willing to have the big people underestimate you and is willing to have, people look down on you and give you shit for being small so that when you kill 30 or 40 of them and you stand atop the pile and you scream, "I am a sexy shoeless god of war," it feels like earned vengeance. And that's the playing that the halfling with a big fucking halfling-sized chip on his shoulder, again, seems like a good idea. It just never occurs to me when I'm actually making a character.
And to me, it's just a little...
Playing that want to fight about it?
Yeah. I put it in a much more annoying way in a previous conversation about little people spellcasters.
Oh, no, you're fucking telling them the thing you did. You're putting on the internet, you're giving evidence to being the most annoying shitbag about this.
It's... I'm going to put this in me not in panic mode version. You feel free to supply the other version if you really want.
Oh, you're doing it.
I edit this podcast. It's going to be a weird period of silence, and we're going to sound very different. But generally, it's hard for me to work around the mindset of when you are playing a small character who can do amazing things with magic, that it's... Oh, God, that was a horrible way to phrase that. That you're compensating for something. But for their small stature, for always being underestimated. The Bellecar thing, but without, I don't know, the barbaric vitriol. You have to be like shitty Yoda.
Your interpretation, memes aside, was essentially Bellecar Bitterleaf if instead of angry, he was snide.
Yeah. Or smug.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you this, and I promise you, listener, 100% oath, blood oath, this is less fucking annoying than the way he was doing it.
I was trying to do a voice as well, so I'm gonna...
I'm small, but I have power!
It's so tedious.
Yes, hearing that was tedious.
Sure, yeah. But I don't even necessarily think it's something to crap on as a gimmick, for other people. It's just not something that blows my skirt up. Like, that's the entire hook I have to hang my hat on. I'm little, but I can blow shit up.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to get past that. It's hard for me not to default to that. And that's a failing on me as a role player. I perfectly accept that. It's hard for me to look around it, but
you know what? I was thinking. What do you have? Can you think of any halfling characters, like just off the top of your head, who have like a hook, who have like the Pippin come to town or the Bellecar? It doesn't have to be a complicated hook. Just one you think might be interesting to play.
That is based on them being a halfling?
Just a halfling with a hook that is... that couldn't be also a human or a dwarf or...
Other than the ones you mentioned, I have a hard time thinking of something that is intrinsically halfling. And I think that speaks to what exactly you were saying, is that they're so mutable that there's not a lot of unique individual hooks. You are either from the Shire or you're fucking not.
And if you are, again, there's other good hooks, but they're characters from the Shire.
There's a Bilbo in there,
There's a Bilbo, the reluctant addition to this cavalcade of failure. There is, there's the halfling who really wants to help his people, like who really wants to go out into the world and make money to go make money in the big people kingdoms to come back and help pay for some debt that the people of Buckleberry Ferry have accrued or something like that. Just a really simple person with a really simple goal. Basically, the guy doing the equivalent of a medieval GoFundMe.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's intrinsic to being a halfling.
No, that's intrinsic to being pastoral.
Yeah, I mean, even then, like, if you were in a big city that found itself in Shitburg, dwarves. Ugh, we've mined all the gold. Fuck.
Or if you're in a big city and you're a member of the underclass.
Sure.
It's intrinsic to not having money already.
Right. But yeah, as a halfling, it's... and to that extent, it's a little weird that they're a core race. Like, it's hard to think about them not being.
Yeah, they're fucking hobbits.
Right. They're they're in the big inspirational thingy.
They're fucking hobbits. They're gonna be in the book.
But they don't have such a strong identity as elves or dwarves or strong signifiers about their culture that you can, really play off of. Like, they live pretty long.
Yeah, they
live about as long as dwarves.
I
Nobody really gets into that. Well, at one point they lived as long as dwarves. Fuck if I know now. They live about 4 years.
Yeah, they reach.
They germinate.
Lives into the middle of his or her 2nd century, so they live at least over 100.
Yeah.
In general, let's go ahead and I'm gonna go pull up their fluff if I can.
Sure. I was reading it just a moment ago. It's very
I'm
hobbity.
gonna use stouts because that's the hobbitiest hobbit. Info. Let's see here. Let's blah blah blah. Yeah, I mean basically stouts are hobbits.
Yeah.
That's what they did in 5th edition. Is they took the 4th edition hobbits and made them Lightfoots, and they took the 3rd edition hobbits and made them stouts.
I took the 2nd edition.
Yeah,
hobbits
that's
and made
true.
them stouts.
Poor 3rd edition had just
3rd edition was like half of one, half of the other, and then there's Ghostwise, which are the halflings that have seen some shit.
Yeah, which is Frodo at the end of the books.
I just want to fuck off to elf heaven and not be here anymore.
He went from a stout to a Ghostwise. And that's looking at their fluff. That's all. That's what they are. Like that's it.
But they have really good mechanics.
I wanted to make sure I wasn't forgetting some very important thing.
I would love to play a halfling divination wizard. I think lucky, their halfling luck, the lucky feat, and then the divination wizard's core little feature would be so gross and fun in gameplay. Just re-rolling dice, replacing dice, stacks on stacks would be just fantastically enabling to play. Like, mechanically speaking, I mean, obviously I'd have to have a character to put around that, and it certainly wouldn't be based on, well, I'm a halfling. But I think that would be a really interesting and fun concept to play as. Of course, I've talked about Markiplier, the halfling bard. I think I don't need to say anything else on him.
No. Halfling because Markiplier is small.
Yeah, that's the joke. It's nothing else.
I once thought of a...
Which he's only like as tall as me.
There's all right. So I thought of a couple halfling characters who are halflings because of that joke, that exact joke. The person they're based on is very small. One is a character from the Dresden Files, Karen Murphy. I used her as an NPC in a campaign of D&D. She was a halfling in the D&D campaign, which I'm sure if Murphy were a real person, she would hear that sentence and then come fight me. Good. There's also someone I follow online who is very small. She's a biochemist. And she's very small and sassy, so I really wanted to play a wizard who was based on her.
Or an artificer.
Yep, and I told her this, and she took it as a compliment.
Oh, how nice.
I was like, you know what, I gotta be honest with you. Like, based on this interaction for the last couple days, I really want to play a wizard as you. And I broke down all the reasons, like wizard because you're a scientist, you're very well educated. Halfling because you're small though. And then her response was, well, now I feel complimented and I have to pretend to be angry. And, like, I guess that might be part of it is you're like an average height guy.
Apparently.
Yep. And I'm tall.
A little bit, yeah.
So, maybe part of the reason neither of us give a shit about halflings is because I literally don't see the world like that.
I mean...
Like, for a kid, a halfling might be really good to play. Because...
Well, neither of us are really pastoral people. Neither of us
I grew up on a farm.
But you don't identify as a hillbilly or a redneck.
I mean, I identify as a hillbilly just because that's factually accurate.
Well, I mean... accepting your heritage and embracing it are two different things.
Yeah, these colors run just fine, thank you.
Being barefoot outside all the time isn't an essential part of your daily diet.
No, being outside isn't a part of my daily diet.
And I wonder if that's also something else that's kind of befuddled me about why would I want to play a halfling. Because if you do play the traditional Hobbit, why did I leave? Why do I not go back home? Why is my character's desire not, all right, but we're going home now, right?
And if you're playing the Wandering Hobbit, because I looked through their fluff while you were talking, and literally they just say, some halflings are hobbits, some are the Riverfolk from 4th edition. You could do either. They literally just took both.
Stop yelling at us.
This is why we can't figure out their fluff, because they just went, oh, just leave us alone. Have both. Fine, whatever. And by that combination, they are rendered mutable. One of their features is literally blend into the crowd. Mm-hmm. They just blend in and don't stand out. Which, again...
mechanically fantastic. Hey, there's your halfling rogue. What a great feature.
Yeah, they just...
It's same as moving through other people's squares.
People look at halfling and go, oh, it's just a halfling. Like, they're not a problem. That's just a halfling. Being underestimated is a powerful tool, but... I kind of lost my point there.
We were talking about how perhaps because we are not in and of ourselves wee folk, that we do not desire to be a wee person.
It's not just that we're not small, it's that we don't really, neither of us have any of the things that help you, that are like a halfling.
Right.
We're not like, neither of us really have any part of that. Whereas, I am a stubborn prick, so dwarf kind of fits.
And I just want to sit in my house and make things, so dwarf kind of fits.
I can be pretty smug and elitist, and thus elf.
So a lot of jokes to make about, we talked about fucking a Magikarp on this podcast already. I could be interested in cannibalism, thus lizard folk.
Like,
alien mindsets, joking aside, is why I end up liking playing monstrous races. I like to explore the headspace of somebody who has, like we talked about in the Elf podcast, just a wildly different perspective in the world.
Yeah, but like...
And halflings don't!
No, and that's the other thing, is their perspective on the world is at the same time not anything either of us would, like, really love to emulate, and also not different enough to be interesting.
Yeah, it's
it's not that we can't understand them, it's no, I understand them just fine, that's just boring.
Yeah, halflings make excellent shopkeepers and farmers and...
Captains of the guard.
Yeah, captains of the guard, and people who have jobs. Responsible adults.
That's it. We cracked it. They're just too grown up for us. Like, no, the halfling doesn't go on adventures. He has a 401k. What are you talking about? The halfling is dad.
You kidding me? I've got 4 kids to feed. I can't afford to go on an adventure. You get all kinds of cool loot, though. It could be possible. Or I could stay here and make all the money I need. Fuck off.
And, not have a huge risk of dying and leaving my poor family without me. What's wrong with you?
Irresponsible.
Do you have no one at home?
Go back to farming their turnips.
Do you have no one who's waiting for you?
No, I have a tragic backstory. All of my family and friends are dead.
Oh, that's rough, friend. That's rough. Come inside. We'll feed you some dinner. And then that adventurer ends up staying with that halfling family and learning valuable lessons about being responsible and grown up. I wish we had more complimentary things to say.
I like them.
That's not how that word works.
Visually a lot.
Complimentary.
In recent efforts to make a character, I was looking at a lot of races, and I looked at a lot of halfling art online, and I like a lot of the ideas people come up with. Halflings seem very popular with female players as well.
I don't know what that is. That doesn't...
And it's just an observation. It might be completely skewed. This data has not been officially polled, just from what I've been looking at. The smaller races, halflings and gnomes, seem popular with female players.
Yeah, I just can't figure out why that might be. Okay. But that's interesting.
Yeah. And they make some really great character concepts, and I love the visuals they come up with. It adds that roundness and that cuteness to the characters, be they male or female or whatever in between. That's, I don't know, it's visually appealing. It's like, nice, what a good character you've come up with. I could think of them saying the things you say while we play the game, which is really all I ever want in somebody's character description. Please deliver unto me an image or celebrity that I might pretend you are.
And thus can do in my head and have the scene be complete.
Immersion.
I don't really have much else to say.
No, I think we've covered, in backward order this time, the things we intend to cover with this podcast. These podcasts, I should say.
Well, look.
We're not organized. Yeah.
And it's...
Even if we were, I'm pretty sure YouTube would strike me for the thumbnail image.
Hey! Yeah.
Not suitable for all advertisers. What do you got against cucumbers, YouTube?
I'm leaving it alone. I'm leaving it alone, everybody. Everything's better when nerds talk about it.